it was our duty to help them and hide them. And I wouldn't want to live in a society where nobody cared a damn. And my mother said, you know we can get killed. And I said, well, I would rather be killed than live in a Nazi society.
It was 1938. Tina Strobos, then a young medical student in Amsterdam, felt the rumblings of change echoing from across Europe. The Dutch capital was still a place of vibrant culture and peaceful streets, yet whispers of terror drifted over from Germany, where families like hers had friends, colleagues, and neighbors. People spoke cautiously of disappearances and restrictions, but in her gut, Tina knew it was something more. Even so, she kept her head down, focused on her studies, trying to ignore the unease that clouded the city's streets. Tina was born into a family that valued compassion, knowledge, and bravery above all. Her mother, Marie Schotte, an outspoken advocate for human rights, had always instilled a sense of justice in Tina. It wasn't unusual for their family to welcome in those who had nowhere else to go. As Tina grew up, she watched her mother and grandmother take in Belgian refugees fleeing the horrors of World War I. It was a silent, powerful lesson, one that stayed with Tina as she began her medical studies and stepped into adulthood. Yet the world outside her medical books was changing. After Kristallnacht in 1938, when Jewish businesses and synagogues across Germany were violently attacked, Tina's fears became reality. Refugees arrived in waves, and the stories they carried broke her heart. If they come here, she thought, what will we do? In May 1940, the nightmare she had dreaded became real. German forces invaded the Netherlands, casting a shadow over Amsterdam's canals and brick streets. Laws were enacted swiftly and ruthlessly, targeting Jewish families, stripping them of their rights, and pushing them out of public life. Tina knew she had to act. One night, as the whispers grew into calls for help, Tina transformed her family's boarding house into a refuge. She enlisted her mother's help to build a hidden attic compartment, a space that would shelter dozens over the years. Their home, only a 10-minute walk from where Anne Frank's family would later hide, became a lifeline for those fleeing persecution. Tina, along with her mother and grandmother, committed to their mission with a fierce determination that would save many lives. Tina joined the Dutch resistance and became an essential part of the network that kept refugees safe. She began to see her mission as more than just hiding people. She would help them escape altogether. Her days were spent studying medicine, but her nights were dedicated to rescuing strangers. The true test of Tina's courage came when Jacob, a friend of her mother's, arrived at her doorstep in a state of panic. He was Jewish and a known target of the Gestapo. Tina took him in without hesitation, knowing the risk. She led him up the narrow staircase to the attic, showing him the hidden compartment where he would stay until safe passage could be arranged. As she closed the door behind him, she realized the weight of the commitment she was making. It wasn't long before Jacob's family joined him in the attic. Tina and her mother quickly learned to communicate in hushed tones, and each creak of the floorboards felt like a potential betrayal. But they adapted, developing signals and routines to avoid detection. As the Gestapo's reach tightened, Tina's work only intensified. To help her hidden guests, she began forging documents and creating false identities. She had learned to speak German fluently and used this skill to navigate checkpoints, often posing as a German sympathizer to divert suspicion. She smuggled food, ration cards, and even weapons hidden in her bicycle basket. Her resolve was unshakable, each act of defiance bolstering her courage. Her skills at deception were soon put to the test. During one of her journeys to deliver forged passports, she was stopped by a German officer. Holding her breath, Tina handed over her identification, praying it would suffice. The officer glanced at her papers, and then, surprisingly, commented on her pretty legs. Realizing his attention was more on her than the documents, she played along, laughing and brushing off the comment. Inwardly, though, she felt a chill. She knew just how close she'd come to being caught. This small victory emboldened her, giving her the confidence to face future interrogations. Over time, the Strobos home became a critical waypoint in the underground network, a haven for those escaping to safer areas. But with each visitor came new risks. Tina and her mother developed a warning system, installing a bell that would ring to alert the hidden guests in case of a sudden police search. Despite the constant danger, they maintained their composure, even as the Gestapo began raiding houses in the neighborhood more frequently. The tension was ever present. Once, the Gestapo arrived unexpectedly, pounding on the door. Tina's mother, Marie, trembled visibly, her hands shaking as she reached for the doorknob. Tina took her mother's arm and whispered reassuringly, reminding her to stay calm and act as though they had nothing to hide. The Gestapo officers searched the house, their boots echoing against the floorboards as Tina's guests huddled in silence just above them. Despite the terror, neither Tina nor her mother faltered. The officers eventually left, but the experience solidified Tina's resolve to continue her work, no matter the cost. Every day brought new challenges and close calls, but Tina's commitment to helping others never wavered. Over the course of the war, she helped more than 100 people escape the Gestapo's reach. She later reflected that courage was not the absence of fear, but the determination to act in spite of it. She had witnessed enough cruelty to last a lifetime, but she refused to let it break her spirit. This was only the beginning of her story. Tina's courage would be tested time and time again as she continued her journey within the resistance. But as long as people needed her, she would be there, risking everything to ensure their survival. The stakes were rising. By 1941, Amsterdam was under the firm grip of German occupation, and the walls seemed to close in on everyone who dared defy the new regime. Tina Strobos, by now deeply entrenched in the resistance, had learned to navigate this dangerous new reality with an almost intuitive skill. She became adept at reading people, sensing danger, and thinking several steps ahead. Her family's home was now a beacon of hope, but also a target. Every knock on the door could mean discovery, arrest, or worse. One day, as Tina was helping prepare forged documents, she learned that a close friend, Johann Brouwer, a key member of the resistance group Binnenlandse Strijdkrachten, had been captured. This news hit her hard. Johann had been an early mentor, someone who had helped her understand the inner workings of the resistance. He'd even given her assignments in the beginning, trusting her judgment and her strength. But the fate of those who opposed the Germans was grim, and Tina feared for Johann's life. With each passing day, the Gestapo's presence in Amsterdam grew more oppressive. Friends and neighbors began to vanish overnight, often taken during surprise raids. As the Gestapo's methods grew more brutal, Tina understood that her own days might be numbered if she continued her work. Yet, despite the fear that must have gnawed at her, she refused to back down. In her interactions with the Gestapo, Tina exhibited a steely composure that belied her age. She knew that her calmness was her greatest asset. During one of her many arrests, Tina employed a tactic she had perfected, pretending not to understand German and requesting an interpreter. This small delay gave her precious moments to gather her thoughts, compose herself, and prepare her lies with absolute conviction. She also learned to exploit the Gestapo officer's vanity, occasionally deflecting attention with small compliments or witty responses. On one occasion, when an officer commented on her appearance, Tina played along, laughing lightly even as she felt her heart pounding. Each interrogation was a test of her resolve. In total, she was detained 9 times, and each encounter left her more determined. It wasn't just about survival. It was about proving that she could outwit those who believed themselves invincible. Her confidence grew with every successful escape, and soon, she became known for her audacity and courage within the resistance circles. Tina's mother, Marie Schotte, was her unwavering ally in this dangerous work. Though deeply fearful of the Gestapo, Marie's courage and dedication never faltered. She and Tina maintained a delicate balance of fear and bravery, with Marie often trembling during searches and Tina quietly reassuring her, a hand on her mother's arm, urging her to show no fear. The bond between them grew stronger with each trial, a silent understanding forged in the fire of shared risk. Marie also played a critical role in organizing their house as a transit station for the Jewish families they sheltered. She monitored supplies, prepared food, and managed the home with precision. Together, mother and daughter crafted a system of covert signals, a simple bell, a coded knock, a phrase, to ensure the safety of those hidden in their attic. Their home was alive with the whispers of fugitives, the rustling of hidden ration cards, and the heartbeat of hope. Tina soon found herself involved in one of the most dangerous aspects of the resistance, document forgery. She and other members of the Landelijke Organisatie began creating false passports, ration cards, and identity documents, all essential for the Jewish families and resistance members in hiding. These forged documents were lifelines, often the only barrier between safety and arrest. Tina knew the Gestapo would be ruthless if they caught her, yet the urgency of her work gave her the strength to continue. One of her most nerve-wracking assignments involved transporting false passports to different safe houses scattered throughout the countryside. Tina would ride her bicycle for miles, the documents hidden in her bag or even within the lining of her coat. Each checkpoint was a potential death sentence. She quickly learned to assess the officers at each station, deciding when to be friendly, when to act disinterested, and when to appear innocently naive. Her charm and quick thinking often diffused tense encounters, allowing her to pass with nothing more than a casual nod from the soldiers. One night, while returning from a delivery, she was stopped by two officers who questioned her about her journey. With a calm smile, Tina explained that she was visiting a sick relative, holding back her breath as they inspected her belongings. After what felt like an eternity, they waved her off, oblivious to the documents hidden beneath her coat. Each successful mission reinforced her courage, but Tina was acutely aware that luck alone wouldn't always save her. Throughout the war, Tina's home continued to shelter Jews, including children who had lost their parents and families who'd narrowly escaped capture. The house itself became a well-coordinated machine of resistance activities. While some people only stayed for a night, others lingered for weeks, waiting for safe passage to a new location. Tina often found herself comforting terrified families, helping them cope with the anxiety and uncertainty of hiding. Her compassion and presence brought comfort, even if only for a short while. One particularly harrowing night, the Gestapo conducted a surprise raid on the neighborhood. Tina and her mother rushed to alert their hidden guests, helping them into the cramped attic space, hearts pounding as the heavy boots of the officers echoed below. As the Gestapo searched room by room, Tina and her mother stood by calmly, knowing that any misstep could mean the end. Miraculously, the officers left without uncovering the hidden compartment, and that night, they sheltered yet another family from certain capture. The war waged on, and the threat grew closer each day. But through every close call, every narrow escape, Tina remained resolute. Her mission had evolved beyond defiance. It had become a testament to the power of human resilience and the strength of quiet courage. Each life saved was a victory, a beacon of hope against the overwhelming darkness. Tina's work with the resistance was not without personal sacrifice, but she remained steadfast, driven by the belief that every individual deserved a chance at freedom. In the months and years that followed, Tina's courage and ingenuity would be tested even further, her life forever intertwined with those she risked everything to protect. Her story was only beginning, as her role within the resistance deepened and her determination to defy the German occupation grew stronger with each passing day. By 1942, Amsterdam had transformed into a labyrinth of secrets, with resistance networks extending across the city like invisible webs. Tina Strobos, by now an established figure in these circles, had gathered a small but reliable group of allies. Each connection brought new risks and responsibilities, and as the Gestapo's grip tightened, trust became both a rare currency and a critical survival tool. Tina's closest confidants were bound by shared values, but above all, by a fierce commitment to protect those who had become hunted. One of these trusted allies was Johann Brauer, a former member of the Binnenlandse Strijdkrachten, who had returned to seek Tina's help after escaping capture. Brauer and Tina worked closely to coordinate missions and to smuggle supplies, relying on a code of silence that shielded each operation. Their tasks ranged from mundane to deadly, transporting ration cards, hiding radios, and occasionally even concealing weapons. These supplies kept the network alive, and Tina's boarding house remained a vital waypoint for countless refugees on their way to safer hiding places. In the heart of her resistance work, Tina established connections with members of the Landelijke Organisatie, a Dutch resistance group that prioritized covert actions over direct confrontation. Unlike the Binnenlandse Strijdkrachten, the Landelijke Organisatie avoided open conflict, focusing instead on organizing shelter, distributing ration stamps, and creating falsified documents. This organization allowed Tina to shift from high-risk activities to strategically organizing supplies and information for her guests. The hidden compartment in her attic often served as a meeting point for other resistance fighters, including men and women who shared her cause. Many of these individuals were unsung heroes, risking their lives with each visit. Together they formed a network of silent protectors, each responsible for a piece of a much larger, invisible puzzle. These friendships were forged under extreme pressure, creating bonds that would withstand even the heaviest of Gestapo scrutiny. One day, a close friend in the resistance came to Tina with a plea for help. A local family was at risk of being discovered by the Gestapo, and they needed a temporary shelter until a safer arrangement could be found. Without hesitation, Tina opened her doors, knowing that this act would endanger her entire network. The family, a mother, father, and their young daughter, stayed hidden for weeks, with Tina and her mother bringing them meals and offering quiet reassurances whenever possible. The tension was ever present, but their presence in Tina's home symbolized the strength of her conviction and her commitment to stand against cruelty, regardless of the cost. For Tina, each person she sheltered was not just a stranger, they were someone's loved one, and that understanding deepened her resolve. This empathy guided her through countless acts of defiance, shaping her approach to each new crisis. With each life she saved, Tina reaffirmed her belief that resistance was not just about action, but about the compassion that action represented. Amid her network's growing demands, Tina knew she would need more resources to continue her work. In a bold move, she began approaching known sympathizers, people who harbored anti-German sentiments but were too afraid to take a public stance. She requested donations, not of money but of food, clothing, and medicine, essentials that could be used for the survival of those she hid. Remarkably, many were willing to contribute, and her small attic stockpile grew. This support network, though informal, became a lifeline, allowing Tina to continue harboring refugees and hiding them from harm. But resources weren't the only thing Tina needed to secure. Her growing operation also required a series of safe houses. Tina's reputation within the resistance helped her locate homes willing to risk sheltering refugees for short periods. Some were friends, others were introduced through trusted contacts. This ever-shifting network of homes provided an additional layer of safety, allowing Tina's guests to remain in hiding without drawing too much attention to any single location. One particularly close call came when a family Tina had arranged to hide was intercepted by a Gestapo raid just before reaching their next safe house. Acting quickly, she and her network devised a rescue plan, coordinating with other resistance members to arrange a diversion. In the dead of night, they managed to extract the family, moving them to yet another shelter. The mission was a success, but Tina knew that such close encounters were becoming more common, a sign that the Gestapo was closing in on their network. Through it all, Tina remained remarkably composed. Her poise in the face of danger became legendary among those who knew her. She often reminded her fellow resistance members that survival required both caution and adaptability. Her work in the resistance wasn't fueled by hatred or vengeance, but by the belief that standing up to injustice was a moral imperative. She saw herself as part of a continuum of compassionate action, a thread that began with her grandmother's acts of bravery in World War I and continued with her own commitment to saving lives in World War II. Her resilience was tested each time she risked her life, but Tina had learned to draw strength from the people she saved, each of whom became part of her extended family. Her home was a place of hope, a refuge that reminded everyone within its walls that, even in the darkest of times, compassion and courage could shine through. As 1942 turned into 1943, Tina's network continued to grow, but so did the risk. With every new ally and every new mission, the danger multiplied. The Gestapo had begun targeting resistance families more aggressively, raiding homes and interrogating anyone suspected of harboring fugitives. Tina herself was questioned multiple times, each encounter a test of her quick thinking and calm demeanor. But her reputation for bravery and compassion grew, inspiring others to take up the cause and expanding the network of protection across the city. As she looked out over Amsterdam's darkened streets one evening, Tina understood the impact of her actions. She was one among many, a link in a chain that stretched across borders and time, each act of resistance a part of a greater struggle for humanity. Tina knew that the war's end was uncertain, but the power of collective compassion was real, and it would endure. By 1943, Tina Strobos' work in the resistance had made her a key figure in Amsterdam's underground network. She was known not only for her courage, but for her ability to stay calm under pressure, her quick thinking, and her unwavering commitment to saving lives. However, her growing involvement came with increased danger. Gestapo raids were intensifying, and the Gestapo seemed determined to dismantle the underground networks. The risk for Tina, her family, and everyone in her network had never been higher. One early summer morning, as the sun cast a pale light over the city, Tina found herself in a harrowing situation. She had been delivering a set of forged passports to a safe house when two officers approached her on the street. Clutching the documents hidden in her bag, she maintained her composure and greeted them with a polite nod. They stopped her, scrutinizing her carefully. Tina felt the weight of the documents, aware that even the slightest misstep could lead to immediate arrest. One officer began questioning her about her business in the area. With practiced ease, Tina explained she was on her way to visit a sick relative. The officer, intrigued, asked more questions, probing for inconsistencies. Tina smiled politely, her heart pounding as she answered. Satisfied but perhaps intrigued by her charm, they let her pass. She exhaled only once she was out of sight. It was a close call, one of many she would experience in those dangerous years. Tina's fiancé at the time, Abraham Peiss, a brilliant young Jewish physicist, was hiding with her assistants. Abraham was an invaluable figure, both in her personal life and within the resistance, but he too was in constant peril. One evening, Tina learned that Peiss and a few others hiding nearby had been betrayed and captured. She felt a rush of panic, yet she quickly gathered herself, determined to find a way to help him. Using her connections, Tina approached a high-ranking German official and convinced him to release Peiss, describing him as an exceptionally gifted physicist who could be of value to the German academic world. The official agreed after some negotiation, a testament to Tina's negotiation skills and her understanding of psychology under pressure. Her fiancé was eventually released, but this incident solidified Tina's resolve, as she recognized how close she had come to losing him. Her family's home continued to serve as a transit station for Jewish families moving to safer locations. Tina's mother, Marie, was a constant source of support, though the stress took a visible toll. Marie's hands would sometimes shake when she answered the door, and Tina would have to remind her to remain calm, to act as though they had nothing to hide. Their home, which had sheltered countless lives, was now a beacon of hope, but also a place where the Gestapo could strike at any time. Tina took extraordinary measures to maintain security. She coordinated regular transfers, moving her guests from one safe house to another to avoid detection. Whenever possible, she escorted them personally, using her medical training as an excuse for travel permits. As a cover, she often carried a stethoscope and medical supplies, adding credibility to her presence on the roads of Amsterdam. The Gestapo's presence loomed over every aspect of Tina's life. On multiple occasions, she was arrested and interrogated, each time using her wit and composure to avoid implicating herself or her network. During one especially tense interrogation, a German officer attempted to intimidate her by throwing her against a wall. Tina, despite the physical pain, refused to betray a single detail about her resistance activities or the people she was hiding. She learned to handle such encounters by keeping a steady gaze, never showing fear, and requesting a German interpreter, even though she spoke fluent German. This tactic allowed her extra time to compose herself and think through her responses. Tina later recounted that in these moments, she realized the Gestapo officers, though powerful, were only men, and that recognizing their humanity helped her hold on to her courage in the face of brutality. Through every close call, every night spent hiding strangers, Tina's courage only grew. The years of resistance taught her that compassion was a force stronger than fear. She believed that her role in the resistance was not just an act of defiance, but an embodiment of her family's legacy, rooted in the values her grandmother and mother had instilled in her. Each life saved, each family protected, became a part of her story, a testament to the quiet resilience of women who dared to protect others at great personal risk. As 1943 drew to a close, Tina knew that the war's outcome was still uncertain. But she also knew that the legacy of resistance, the lives saved, the friendships formed, the hope sustained, would endure. Her journey was far from over, but each act of bravery solidified her place in history as a beacon of humanity amidst unimaginable hardship. By 1945, with the liberation of the Netherlands finally at hand, Tina Strobos emerged from years of secrecy and sacrifice, having saved over 100 Jewish lives. Her time in the resistance had been marked by close calls, relentless fear, and unimaginable risks. Yet she had shown through every moment of danger that her commitment to others was unwavering. Once the war ended, Tina returned to her studies, determined to make a positive impact in a world scarred by violence and loss. She later moved to the United States, where she pursued a career in psychiatry, specializing in trauma and emotional healing. Her work was deeply influenced by the strength and endurance she had observed in those she sheltered, and she dedicated her life to helping others navigate their own challenges